Hey, welcome back to another video. I'm Sam Portland, and today we are going to talk through probably one of the reasons why you are not reaping the results that you want from your speed training. It goes back to this process from Verkhoshansky, and this is the relationship between your process of motor learning, so actually kind of understanding the skills that are required and the specific skills that are required for movement and the transfer of that onto the field, and your rate of adaptation. So at the top here we've got preparedness, and across the bottom we've got output in competitive task. Now for the purpose of today we're going to look at the competitive task. Could be effective acceleration, so 1, 2 to 5 steps. So that is the task that we are trying to prepare the athlete for. And when we are astute coaches, and actually how we're trying to be deliberate in our ability to create speed on the field, that we need to contextualize the task that we are trying to create. We need to compartmentalize our process of coaching in order to create sustainable transfer and purposeful deliberate adaptation. It's very, very important that that is at the paramount and the forefront of our brains as we approach the programming problems and the training coaching situations that we are faced with all the time as coaches. So what I want you to understand first is this adaptation. So when we are understanding this gap here, there's a huge disparity from the starting point. So our initial output in the competitive task is incredibly low. Okay, so we've got this huge window of adaptation. So for example, we've all learned a new skill before and we're not very good at it. And this goes back to the fundamentals of skill acquisition with the cognitive, associative and autonomous phases that are proposed by many skill acquisition experts. So we have high rates of forgetting. So we can practice a wall drill, for example, or a one-step push, and then come back the following session and then we've completely forgotten about it. And this is understanding that the output in the competitive task there is incredibly low, purely based on the fact we don't know how to do it. It's unconscious incompetence. And in the sports speed system, that ties us really perfectly into the learning to sprint phases of the process. So as we progress, we are understanding the goal is to meet the process of motor output, okay, and the adaptation will meet in the middle. And the end stage is actually what happens is then that skill or that exercise or that process that we've been deliberately practicing at. Remember, deliberate practice is a fundamental coaching for creating sustainable transfer. What happens here is that the motor learning and the adaptation have met in the middle. So therefore that element of training ceases to have a high rate of susceptibility or a high dose load response relationship. So therefore what happens with that is then it becomes redundant, which is great for us because we've increased our level of trainability and transferred out into the next phases of performance, which is amazing. So understanding how we implement this, when we've got a high rate of forgetting, so the athlete doesn't really know what to do, it's very novel and they can't demonstrate, as Bernstein's hammer, they can't, with degrees of variability, they can't demonstrate that they can kind of do it over and over again. It's not landed, cemented well. So that's where we have to keep it really simple, really basic, really consistent and high volumes, but slow relative to the scale of speed. So we can categorize, right, well, this is the exercise that I'm going to use, this is the frequency, this is the process, and this is the goal of it. Goal 1 is just learn to do the exercise to increase the output in the competitive task. So then as we move up, this relationship is going to decrease. The ratio between being not very good and the output is going to decrease because we're going to get better, and that will then improve the output of the task, gives us a high degree of specificity and a high degree of transfer to actually what we want to do. We want our athletes to be able to run fast on the field and train specifically to improve that. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope that made a lot of sense to you. Please leave me a comment below. Please engage with this so I can help and ask any questions that you want, because this is really important. It's a fundamental premise of the sports speed system, and a big thank you to Yuri Verkhoshansky of the shock method, who first introduced this methodology into the Western training